Today I want to talk about Jack Kerouac, one of the most famous American authors of the 20th century, known for the Beat movement. He started publishing novels in the late 40s and the 1950s. His novels documented his travels across the United States with his friends who were sort of narrowly veiled disguises of people like Allen Ginsberg and other poets in the Beat generation. But he started, as a football player in college. He left. He became a merchant marine. He fell in love with literature. He really wanted to write like the great European writers like Marcel Proust and Arthur Rimbaud. He was totally drawn to European writing, and he loved even like Louis Ferdinand Céline. And he aspired to be a great novelist, yet he also had the spirit of adventure in his heart, and he wanted to travel around the world and write about it. And you can see that in his novels, that it's a passion of sort of documenting his life and his journeys and his experiences. And this is why he always compared himself to Marcel Proust, who did the same thing, except Proust sort of retired into a cork-lined room, apparently, and wrote about his life with the French aristocracy. And Kerouac wrote about his experiences with people like Allen Ginsberg and the rest of the Beat generation of poets, which were known for more kind of free-form prose, free-form poetry, and also influenced by jazz musicians, just open up to different things. In that respect, Jack Kerouac was kind of an outsider artist in the definition of Jean Dubuffet, in that he wasn't part of the literary establishment. He only got published because he was friends with Allen Ginsberg, and Allen Ginsberg played the literary game a little bit better than Jack Kerouac did. And Kerouac's first novel, The Town and the City, was an absolute flop. It printed 500 copies, and that was it. And he couldn't get anything published for 7 years. And then eventually, when Beat literature became a thing, they published On the Road, and then he became the commercial edge of that entire movement. But why I want to talk about it is he was an experimentalist, and in this novel, The Subterraneans, it was written just over a couple days, and it's all kind of dark and lurid. His love for this woman and hanging around in bars in San Francisco and New York, and how the woman eventually runs off with his friend. But the prose is all just run-on sentences and long probing things, and it was very influenced by Céline's later works like Castle to Castle, Rigadoon, and North, which is basically just broken, fragmentary sentences with very little punctuation. But it was a huge influence on my new novel, The Orphean, because The Orphean sort of draws on my own personal experiences, much like Kerouac's novel here, but also I'm obsessed with these long, fluid, poetic sentences that you get in Kerouac's writing, because for me, I'm not going to write a novel unless it illuminates something, illuminates my heart, illuminates the world, or illuminates your heart, the reader. And I love to use these long, probing sentences to give this kind of sense of psychological tension. I think with shorter sentences, like a more minimalist style, you're sort of more committed to an action novel, but you can't really get into sort of the periphery of experience, of psychological experience, and the depths of emotional experience unless you're working in the realm of long kind of probing sentences, like Richard Ford, who I talked about last week, Marcel Proust, and Henry James, perhaps, if you read A Turn of the Screw, and Jack Kerouac. So I strongly suggest, if you haven't read any Kerouac, I'm sure you probably read On the Road, but dig deeper into his catalog. There's a lot there, a lot of fascinating stuff, and this is one of my all-time favorites. And I do encourage you to check out my novel, The Orphean. It's a day in the life of a men's fashion and fragrance influencer on his way to meet his estranged daughter in an increasingly dystopian world where reality just tends to fall apart as the novel progresses. It's one of my favorite novels that I've ever written, and I hope you get a chance to check it out and enjoy it. Anyway, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again.